Thank you very much. Let's talk to Sam, who's in New York. Hey, Sam, you're on Trunk Nation with Ace Frehley.
Real quick, Ace, I just wanted your opinion and like to know how you felt. Back when you made The Elder, you absolutely hated it. How do you feel about it today?
The Elder?
Yeah, has it aged with you?
I think The Elder is a really good album. I thought my big problem with The Elder was that I thought it was the wrong album for the time. You know, if we would have done Creatures of the Night instead of The Elder, you know, I don't think there would have been that lull in our career.
You used to tell me, thank you, Sam. You used to tell me that you have a bunch of recordings, like a lot of your solos and stuff got cut out of The Elder. That you have tapes and stuff of what that record would have been if you had more.
That'll be included in my box set, which is probably going to take a long time to put together. But
are you going to go around and hand sell it to people for $2,000 a piece?
I'll put it in a vault.
Well, you know, you just said a safe.
Maybe you should put it in a little safe with a little handle on top.
This is Chris in Florida. Chris, you're on with Ace Frehley.
Hey, it's a pleasure, Ace. You were my first guitar hero. Nice to be here.
Hi, Chris. Thank you.
Hey, so my question to you is also in relation to the Elder album. It's after the album Unmasked, how far did Kiss get into recording that hard rock back to basics album that they had promised fans before scrapping that idea and bringing the Elder concept in?
So he's asking about a period between Unmasked and the Elder. There was talk. Chris, your understanding is there was talk of doing a hard rock record, and before that was scrapped to do the Elder?
Yeah, they had promised something that would be, I believe, to the Kiss Army newsletter that hinted at the new album would be hard and heavy from start to finish before scrapping that.
Obviously, Paul and Gene and Bob Ezrin, who produced that record, you know, changed their minds. And one of the things that really bummed me out is that once we lost Peter in the band, I had no voting power. You know, when we were a democratic group, even if me and Peter felt one way and Paul and Gene felt the other, Bill O'Coin was the tiebreaker. But once Peter left, it was Paul and Gene against me. Even if I had a brilliant idea and they said no,
it died right there.
It died. That's when I realized I had to leave the group, amongst other things.
Ronnie in Oklahoma. Ronnie, you're on with Ace.
Hey, Eddie. How you doing?
Hi.
Hey, Ace. How you doing, man?
I'm hanging in there.
All right, cool, man. Hey, I have a question about a couple of your earlier albums, like your Frehley's Comet, Second Sighting, and Trouble Walking. I know on the Second Sighting album, I know when I first bought it on vinyl, there was a picture in the back, and I noticed Anton Fig wasn't on there, but you had Jamie Albaker. I mean, I know he's a great drummer. He's got some credentials, you know, playing with Eric Clapton.
He's from Oklahoma. I see him when I go to Tulsa. I see him every once in a while, yeah.
Yeah, I just wonder, you know, what was up with that? I mean, was not using Anton for that album.
Anton, unfortunately, wasn't able to work as much because he was doing the David Letterman show at the time, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I can speak to this because I worked on that record with you. But there was also the thought that the band that was going to go play live would actually do the record because that was you knew Anton could never go out on the road, so that was the idea of trying to make the record like that. So,
I mean, John Reagan brought in Jamie Albaker, and he's a great drummer. He's a different type of drummer that I've ever worked with. Because his background is different than any of the heavy rock drummers I've worked with. So, but he was a good drummer and fun to work with, and unfortunately, you know, didn't work out.
That was a good album. I mean, that, in my personal opinion, your Second Sight. Well, all your stuff you've done are good music. Ace.
You know what the best thing about Second Sighting is, Ronnie?
Yeah.
If you open up the inner sleeve, there's a guy with 2 feet going opposite directions. The photo. You know whose feet those are?
Oh, yeah, I know it's several. Who's are those?
Me.
Really?
That's a true story. You remember that, Ace?
I remember like it was yesterday. I also remember that during that album,
you were not in the best space.
I drank a lot of cough syrup.
Let's just say, Let's just say Ace is not actually on some of Second Sighting. I could tell you stories forever, but Todd picked up the slack there. Yeah, we don't have the time. But thank you, Ronnie. But once while I was standing in the studio while Ace was making that record, I put one foot behind the other, and Ace almost fell off the chair, pulled out his camera, and even then you were into like graphics and digital stuff. You took a photo, and you ended up making it the dust sleeve. And I came on MTV with you when you did promotion to do that record on camera.
And you did it.
And I did it. Now I'm old. My leg would fall off. But
what was the record right before the one we did in Theater of the Round, Rock and Roll Over?
Well, Rock and Roll, but the record before the last studio record before the solo records would have been Love Gun.
Okay, so after Love Gun, I started writing for the next album, and there was 2 or 3 songs. I think Rip It Out might have been one I held back because it was a great opener, and. But everybody does that kind of stuff when you have X amount of material and you have to come up with X amount of material. Sometimes, you save it for certain projects. Like if a guy like me was doing film scores or doing themes for a television show and I came up with something really catchy, I would probably save it for that genre.
And, of course, a huge hit on that record, which still to this day gets played all the time at sporting events, especially here in New York, Giants games, Yankees games, whatever, is New York Groove, which I don't know how many people realize is a cover. It was a cover. Who brought that?
A lot of people thought I wrote that song.
Because the original song was not a hit, the original version of the song.
Correct.
Which was written by Russ Ballard. So how did that come on your radar? Who gave you the idea, or was that your idea to cover that?
I had nothing to do with that song. It was Eddie Kramer's assistant. Eddie Kramer played it for me, and I said I hate it. And then Eddie kept trying to cajole me into doing it, and I listened to it over and over again. And just to make Eddie happy, I tracked it. And then once I aceified it, it started sounding better to me, and I said, and then when we moved to the studio at Radio City, where all the Rockettes used to walk by, we did overdubs there, and it really came together in that studio. We had a couple of chicks come in and sing the harmony against the chorus, and I didn't know. Sometimes you know from the outset you got something great. When I started recording this record, I had a feeling that it was going to be a good record. And New York Groove, I wasn't sure. Yeah. And next thing you know, it's my biggest hit to date.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. You hear it all the time still.
Can't figure it out.
Well, we could talk about the old days all day long, but you're here to sell a new record, of course, which is called Spaceman and is out on Friday. And a lot of interesting things about this record. The thing that's maybe getting some of the biggest headlines is the fact that, on Origins, you had a reunion with Paul Stanley because you guys did Fire and Water and he did the video. Mm-hmm. And on this record, significant because you have reunited with Gene in a working capacity, at least on this record. So talk a little bit about that, how that came about, and how you feel about the results.
Well, I was doing a vault experience in Los Angeles at Capitol Records with Gene, and it went really well, and we were funny, and we jammed a little, had some fun. I think, who's the drummer in Kiss right now?
Eric Singer.
I know. Remember, he's one of my... I love Eric. We go out all the time together. Eric and Bruce showed up.
You used to have a nickname for Eric Singer. I don't know if you remember that.
Me?
Yeah, you're at the end.
Yeah.
Something. Yeah, it's
Ernie.
There was another one too. You towards the end. See, this is why when you do your next book, you need to talk to me because I remember the story.
People fill me in.
Well, people may not. I said this before. People may not know this, but just a quick thing on Ace and I, our history. The first time Ace became a solo artist, I got him his record deal. I signed him to his record deal. Megaforce Records, 87, right? And those were the days when you did interviews via fax because it was before email and all that. So Ace this is true, you don't know how much you remember this, that we used to get faxed by reporters the interview questions, and you'd fill them out and send them back. So 9 times out of 10, Ace would look at the questions, and he'd be like, I don't don't remember all this. What record was it? And you'd ask me.
Yeah.
And then finally it got to the point where I ended up just answering the questions.
In questions yourself.
So there's some magazine interviews out there that are actually with me interpreting for Ace because he doesn't remember all the time. Although your memory's gotten way better since you...
Today is Ace Frehley. I got to ask you this, as a long time, Kiss fan. You have anything to do with this upcoming End of the Road? I know you can't answer.
I haven't. I haven't.
I have to ask.
I'll be honest with you. I haven't been asked. They announced the tour, but who announces a major tour without any tour dates? I mean, Ed Trunk. I just was talking to Ed Trunk, and he goes, in the history of rock and roll, he's never heard a group announce this major tour, and there's not one tour date mentioned yet.
Well, maybe they're waiting to see which shows you're going to do.
You know what they do? They're testing the waters. And
Right.
I have a good feeling about it. 6 months ago, Paul Stanley was saying in interviews he'd never work with me again on the road. And last week he was saying he wouldn't rule it out. So that's a huge change.
Yeah, and then I actually just saw something online recently, and I know it's not really your business, but you were there with Gene when he made a comment about Paul on stage in Australia, and I was like, well, what's the next band meeting going to be like after that gets said? I'm just glad
I don't remember what he said.
He made some comment about Paul's voice in relation to Gene singing all the songs, and he never loses his voice.
Well, I told Gene, get me back in the band, and I'll sing 5 songs, which will take the pressure off Paul. And
perfect.
Sounds like a good plan. But I don't make the decisions anymore with Kiss.
No, I hear you. So back in the day, your picture used to hang outside Madison Square Garden on the entrance to Penn Station.
I remember that.
It was like you and I think a poster for Ringling Brothers, Circus, and like maybe Billy Joel. Those were like the 3 photos they had up, like representing Madison Square Garden. And as kids, we thought it was the coolest thing in the world that Ace Frehley was up there, like this big, giant, larger-than-life photo of you on the side of Penn Station. And that used to be our meeting spot. Whenever we'd meet in the city, we'd say, "Meet me under Ace Frehley," and everybody knew. Everybody knew what that meant.
Right.
And so, like, is there any background to that? Like, how it ended? Like, did they contact you back then, or like?
It was a total surprise. I had nothing to do with the decision making. I'm sure if the guys in Kiss had anything to do with it, it would have been Paul or Gene. I think the people at Madison Square Garden just made the decision on their own.
Yeah, I mean, everyone always had their favorites in the band, and I guess,
Right.
I guess someone at MSG was like, "Oh, I'm putting Ace up." Did it ever cause any issues? Do you know were any phone calls made after the fact to say, how come it's not me up there?
Well, I think once it was put up, it was too late to complain about it.
Right.
I mean, what are you going to say? Take Ace's picture down and put me up? I don't think that was going to happen. So it was just one of those flukes that I thought was fabulous and gave me a lot of press. And, but they took it down. I don't know how many years ago when they renovated the garden or did
when
stuff.
the renovation started, they took all those photos down. But for years, that was our meeting spot. I even in my last book, one of the chapters of my book is called "Meet Me Under Ace Frehley."
Nice. Thank you.
You're welcome. So,
okay.
I read.
Have you heard the new album?
I've only heard the 2 songs that are up on Apple Music
kidding?
so far.
You didn't get the record?
I don't. Now
I'm angry. Now I'm angry.
No, I heard Bronx Boy leads into my next question because I read your book, and I know you told me a lot about your book that night at the John 5 show at the Whiskey, but I still really enjoyed that book. I got a lot of laughs. I know you said it wasn't your voice a lot of the time, but I really felt like it was your voice when I was reading it. So
no, well, I rewrote the book with John Ostrowski.
Oh, so then that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
My ghostwriter really didn't have a grasp on reality when it came to an Ace book. He was talking about the day at Magic Mountain when I split and they had to use my stunt double who was black.
Right.
And when I read his version of it, because he took it from a tape of me being interviewed by him, he goes, and my version, my stunt double was an Afro-American. And I just scratched my head. I go, I would never say that. I'd say my stunt double was black. And there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't have negative connotations. At that point, I said to John, we got to rewrite a lot of this shit. So that's what happened. And that's why the book is better than it would have been.
Right. No, I hear you. I mean, yeah.
You can hear my voice on a lot of the
absolutely.
words. Yeah.
Absolutely. So you growing up in the Bronx, and you talk about the Ducky Boys. Is that the same gang that was represented in that movie, The Wanderers?
There was only one Ducky Boys.
Yeah, I guess it must be. Do you ever see that movie? I guess it came out in the 70s or
Yeah,
early
I've
80s,
seen
The
it.
Wanderers.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people ask me about that. I go, yeah, that was the gang I was in.
They kind of represented them in the movie almost like being supernatural, like they would just appear out of the fog. Like I'm sure that a lot of that was done for dramatic effect, but...
Well, you know, we used to do crazy things. We used to go to Botanical Gardens, which is right off Bedford Park Boulevard, and we throw rocks through the guard's house, you know, break a window, and then run. And we call it, we're going on a chase tonight, and we'd have the cops that guard the Botanical Gardens chasing us all over the, you know, and once in a while somebody got caught, but 95% of us got away.
Right.
No, but we thought it was fun. And it actually was at the time.
Yeah, of course, yeah. You guys like weren't like in the movie where that gang would show up and just kind of mow down everything in its path. It's like, you know, there'd be like 300 dudes beating up on people, and it doesn't sound like it was.
Well, I
like
escaped a lot of that because of music. You know, I used to get phone calls when I was like 14 and a half, and they'd say, we got a rumble tonight, you know, bring knives and chains. And I'd say, I can't go. I got a gig at, you know, the Catholic church down the street.
Right.
And pretty much music saved me from that gang, you know. You know, I got my bands, local bands became more popular and got steady work. So pretty much at one point they just stopped calling me because they said, he's going to be busy.
Right. Well, it sounds like usually in a thing like that where people would say, not the face, but for you it'd have been like, not the hands. I got a gig.
Exactly.
Another story too from your book that it's just amazing to me is your Hendrix story down at the Fillmore.
That whole thing sounds so surreal.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Sometimes there's things in my life where if I literally didn't have like a photo, I would almost think like, did that actually really happen?
Yeah. No, it actually happened, you know.
No, I believe you that it happened. I'm just saying I understand what you mean.
I went to Randall's Island concert. I was dressed in lemon yellow hot pants with a black shirt with a snakeskin star, and I had a pair of Vans on, checkerboard, and my hair was down to my tits. I had long hair, and
right.
I was watching. I was watching the other rock bands come out of the side of the stage, because some of the other rock bands that were performing wanted to see who was playing, you know, that was performing at the time. And back then there were no laminates or stickers.
Right.
So pretty much, you know, all you did was walk in and walk out. If you look like a rock star, you're going to get in. And if you don't, you won't. So I just walked up to the guy and I gave him the nod, and he said, go through. He figured I was in one of the bands.
Right.
And then 15 minutes later, they realized I wasn't anybody. And then they said, before they kicked me out, they said, hey, is there anything you can do? I said, yeah, I can set up drums, tune guitars, whatever. Next thing you know, I'm setting up Mitch Mitchell's drums. I mean, it was just totally unbelievable.
I'm assuming you got to sit there and watch the show.
Oh, I was there the whole night.
Yeah, they didn't say set up the drums and then throw you out.
No, the stage manager was real cool, and he saw that I was doing what I was asked to do and doing it efficiently, and I got a chance to shake Hendrix's hand. I mean, it was just surreal. And at the end of the night, I had no way of getting home. My friends had left. And I walk out and I get to the street and I put my finger out, and the first car that pulls up, I go, I need a lift to the Bronx. They go, where? I go, well, I live off Marshall Parkway. We're going, well, that's where we're going. I mean, what are the odds of that happening?
Yeah, a perfect end.
Yeah. I got a free